Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar, run through the weather warnings as we have got some rain warnings issued over the next few days, as we are going to see some heavy rain in places. We'll be able to have a look at that in detail on the latest UKV, where we are going to see pretty unsettled conditions and very up and down temperatures, some very cold days at times, but equally some very mild days, like tomorrow for example, could get up to 15 or 16 degrees in the south behind the weather front that is going to be sweeping through, especially in the morning. Now, many of you will be watching this video because next week it is quite likely now that we see our first proper Arctic blast of late autumn, early winter. Now, we're not going to be seeing a sustained cold spell. That it looks like it is off the table now. It was a very slim chance a few days ago, like that GM run we saw a couple of days ago that did show a proper sustained blocked pattern. The most likely scenario now that most of the models are agreeing on is for a cold or even very cold air mass to spread in from the north, giving quite widespread below average temperatures. Lots of frosts up and down the country, wintry showers quite widely in the north, but could occur further southwards, but again it depends on disturbances and things like that, and most likely lasting for around 2 to maybe 4 days in duration. Now, different runs have different levels of cold and exact wind directions. A northwesterly wind would favour snow showers or wintry showers in different areas than a north or northeasterly wind, so there's still those sort of things we do need to decipher, but at this stage most runs are in agreement now that we are going to see a very cold air mass move in. It is only going to be a blast. It's only going to last 2, 3, 4 days in a largely very amplified jet stream pattern, and yeah, it's going to be a real shock to the system when it arrives, perhaps in around a week's time, but we'll have a look at those details a little bit more in the second half of the video. So do remember, if you enjoy the videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well. The link's in the description. Now, if you start on live radar, we're kind of in between weather systems at the moment, so it's actually quite a dry and sunny day, but it is pretty fresh out there if those winds do get up in places. You can see the next weather front is out to the west now, starting to push into southwest England and out across the Republic of Ireland. Again, this is not a particularly accurate representation of the weather front, as the radar isn't quite working out there across parts of the Republic of Ireland, so it is a little bit of an estimation here. It is a lot more extensive than this is making out to be. But as it progresses eastwards, we're to see that it is going to give quite heavy rain overnight tonight into tomorrow. And as I said, there are weather warnings issued. Now, I'm recording this a little bit earlier than I normally do, around lunchtime today actually. And you can see these are the sort of peak temperatures today. Not particularly mild, but not particularly cold either. As I said, it's feeling fresh when the wind gets up, and you can see plenty of blues, but also a little bit of yellows around, and even some lighter blues up across Scotland, indicating temperatures not getting much above the low single digits. And again, just symbolic that we are heading into some of the coldest periods, or into the coldest period of the year as we head into winter. Now, if you do look at the latest weather warnings, that warning across southwest England has now been budged primarily to Saturday, so it is not issued for this evening, but we now got this new warning issued for a very small region across southeast Northern Ireland for about 6 hours tonight from 9 p.m. until 3 a.m, again for very heavy rain. 15 to 25 millimetres widely, could locally see 40 to 50 millimetres, high likelihood, lower end of the impact matrix. If we have a look at the warning for southwest England and South Wales, it is from midnight tonight until 10 a.m. tomorrow for another spell of heavy rain in this region. As I said, the end time and start times have been moved. We're looking at 10 to 15 millimetres quite widely, perhaps 20 to 30 millimetres locally, with a small chance of 40 to 50 millimetres over the highest ground. Again, high likelihood, lower end of the impact matrix. Again, all because we've got very saturated ground around at the moment, and again, it just exacerbates those issues when we see more areas of heavy rain like this. So if you do have a look at the latest UKV, you can see at the moment it is reasonably dry, but we are going to continue to see showers pushing in from the southwest through this evening, with the heavy rain arriving for all. Again, it makes very slow progress through Saturday night, but for all areas by sort of the early hours of Saturday morning, we are going to see heavy rain pushing in. Luckily, it should mostly clear by around lunchtime. Then we see a smattering of heavy showers in the north. Southwards is actually turning a bit drier, and as I said, would be a lot milder as well, with quite a warm mid-Atlantic air mass moving in. Beyond that, as we head into Sunday, more rain spreading in, and we see lots of showers, but this time much further southwards. So Saturday could be a much more showery day further southwards, and then as we head into Monday, eventually those showers do start to peter out as we see some higher pressure build in, and this is the higher pressure that is eventually going to ridge northwards and allow that northerly wind to arrive, as said, in around a week's time. You can see the upper air temperatures here. We're already pulling in an easterly wind by this stage, so actually it could be quite cold in the east and southeast during the middle of next week, because it is a very small region, so it is going to be liable for very small differences. But it's that warm air to our west, which is under the centre of the high, that is going to be shifting northwards and allowing that northerly wind to eventually arrive. Now, if you look at the max temperatures, you can see today it is a chilly day, but nothing amazingly cold. As said, low single digits across Scotland, but that is not too unexpected this time of year. Further southwards, 8 to 10 degrees. As said, into tomorrow, much milder air does move in, and by the middle of afternoon tomorrow, we could see 14 to maybe as high as 16 degrees across parts of England as well, and Wales, as we do see that warm, mild Atlantic air mass move in. As we head into Sunday, though, we will start to see cooler air slowly sweep back in. Could still hang on to a 12 to 14 in the south, but by Monday, definitely starting to turn a little bit fresher, maybe down to 8 to 12 degrees, and by Tuesday, quite a bit fresher, 7 to 10 degrees, and expecting it to be even colder by Wednesday if we do see that fresh easterly wind start to move in again. This is a transient easterly wind. It's nothing bitterly cold or produce anything snowy or anything like that. Transient easterly wind on the eastern edge of the higher pressure. And we'll be able to see now how it will evolve in the longer term, giving the risk, as I said, of an Arctic blast. Now, if you do have a look at the next few days, again, it's a generally a westerly flow, but you can see the high pressure ridging in by early next week, and it does pull in that easterly wind for a time. Fresh air mass, but the high pressure kind of topples over the top of us. And in around 5-6 days' time, it ridges northwards. And I said, in about a week's time, we see this northerly blast arrive. You can see, though, the high pressure only just about gets over Iceland and Greenland. If we were to see this sustained, we'd probably see this high connect with the higher pressure that's more towards the Arctic, and that would cut off the westerly flow. But unfortunately, we're not seeing that. So this is going to be a northerly wind, but it does slowly get toppled, and by around the end of the weekend, we pull more of a westerly wind in. So you can see here, it is a northerly wind arriving around Thursday, and eventually moving away, probably by the Monday. So as I said, about 3 or 4 days. After that, it does go into more of a westerly flow. There still could be some amplification, some brief colder air masses moving in, but it looks like the westerly winds are a little bit too strong by this stage, and those blue core of the tropospheric polar vortex is too collated together really to see any more amplification. But the risk is always there. We will have to see exactly what is entailed in the longer term. As I've said numerous times over the last couple of weeks, the sort of the long-term pattern that we have seen throughout our winter updates is for some more westerly winds through the early part of the winter. A lot of the blocking patterns we've seen on the winter look-aheads have been really post-New Year, so this isn't too unexpected. But again, it still could change, and we will just have to see. Tomorrow, we'll have another winter look ahead, but this time we'll be focusing more on medium range charts, or medium to long range charts, looking at sort of the next 4 to 6 weeks, which does spread out towards winter as we do start, towards Christmas, as we now do have that data coming in. It'll be very interesting to see what that is showing. But if you run back and have a look at the raw air mass from this GFS run, you can see as we head into next week that a very cold air mass moves in. The -10 isotherm might even move in for Scotland, but widely we're looking at the -5 isotherm moving in much fresher air mass, plunging in from the south, and you can see by around Sunday evening into Monday, the milder air moves back in. But still, even when the colder air does sort of peter out, we'll still see frosts and fog at the surface as the cold air does hold on. You can see the temperature deviation is well below average, darker blues, even some bit of purples mixing in there, so getting towards 10 degrees below average, and the potential equivalent temperature is for a very strong northerly wind there. You can see the cold air mass moving in, and if we do look at the surface, see the dew points are well below freezing, down to -5 in places, and the 2-meter temperatures are freezing cold. Look at that, by Friday afternoon we're touching maybe 5 or 6 degrees at best. Saturday, again, maybe 4 or 5 degrees at best, and overnight widely down towards freezing. Now, if you look at the latest GEM, again, it's actually pretty similar. It was going for a plain westerly flow yesterday, but it is now more in line with the other runs with a northerly wind coming in for a time. You see this developing here, northerly wind arrives, but it's slightly later than the GFS. The GFS has it coming in about Thursday. Here, though, the ridge of high pressure over the top of us doesn't move away as quickly, so it delays that northerly wind, and it eventually arrives for Sunday, and actually is even more of a temporary blast, probably only lasting maybe 2 days here, arriving on sort of Saturday and dissipating away through Monday. So GM has it on a much shorter time frame, but still a very potent air mass moving in. Temperature deviation around 6 to 8 degrees below average, turning it very cold once again. If we go ahead to the ECMWF, yesterday's 12 o'clock run didn't actually go ahead. So ECMWF was having some problems. So this is the first one we've had in about 24 hours now. And you can see that we do see that high pressure over the top of us by early next week. That northerly wind eventually arrives. It's nowhere near as straight a northerly wind as the GFS or even the GEM has, but it still is that cold air mass moving in from the north from around Friday to around Sunday, with that much fresher air moving in. Again, not quite as cold, but still a bit of a blast of well below average air mass, as you can see here, getting towards those darker blues. Interestingly, the ECMWF here is the only run that actually does get blocking towards the northern parts of Canada and Greenland. But just the ridge isn't as strong as the other runs. The other runs don't get it as far northwards, but the ridge is stronger, whereas here the ridge is actually weaker, but it actually extends further north, so spreads out a little bit more. So all the runs are roughly in agreement with the overall pattern, but you can see they're in slight disagreement exactly how it does evolve and exactly how it does play out. Now, if you look at the latest ensembles, the GFS definitely now on board with a cold air mass moving. You see the majority of runs are now average to below average, with some significantly below average, some even down to the -10 line, which would give the risk of widespread winteriness within any precipitation. You can see, though, that there are still some milder outliers, and in the longer term, generally we are trending more towards average, but definitely quite a cold signal here for the end of November. Tunis temperatures are well below average. Look at that mid to low single digits in from many of the ensemble members, and the dew points dropping towards freezing from many of them. Still a lot of scatter though, so timings and exact intensities of cold air mass is still up for debate, but most now from the GFS ensembles are in agreement. We're going to see an Arctic blast, just as I said, disagreements on exact intensities and timings. ECMWF, though, is still slightly sceptical. Definitely quite a few showing a colder air mass moving air from around the 25th to the 27th in around a week's time. But still significant numbers around average, or even slightly above average. There is a definite trend of average to below average here. The white line is mostly below average here, but by only a degree or so, not the sort of 3-4 degrees we're seeing from the GFS. So much less bullish from the ECMWF. Again, it has got more ensemble members, so you would probably expect a little bit more spread, but definitely quite a bit more uncertainty here. So still there is some scepticism from the models, but I must say that most of the operation runs are in agreement of a cold or east, potentially very cold air mass moving in for a time, and quite a few of the ensemble members are just the ECMWF in slight disagreement. I do just want to have a look at the 12 o'clock run. Did the 12 o'clock run go yesterday? Actually, it did in the end, and you can see that actually it was, again, going for a slightly colder air mass in the longer term, but still no massive deviation. So we're just going to have to keep a very close eye on what is going to be happening. It is, as I said, very uncertain at this stage exact evolution. Most runs are now in agreement for colder air to move in. First proper Arctic blast, -5 isotherm moving in for most, and it is going to be a pretty big shock to the system. So I'll keep you updated with exactly what is going to be happening. As I said, still could be some changes, but it is looking more and more confidence is building, and it is looking more and more likely that we will see something quite a bit colder as we head into the latter part of next working week. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you have enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.